All right. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. So nice to see you again. And we have a new lady, a new guest with us tonight, Lucia Palmini from Italy, living in France, I think.
Indeed.
Indeed. We haven't met in person, but we have talked a little bit before on Zoom in a meeting, and just I was so drawn to your energy, your joy, and your wisdom. Could you say
Oh,
some just few words about yourself? Introduce yourself.
sure. Um, okay. The most important thing, I'm a woman who was basically in a journey of discovering of the self, like everybody. And actually, I changed. I was born in Italy, but I actually moved around also pretty much in my 40 years. So I was living for 10 years in the Netherlands, then another 10 years in France, then 1 year in Belgium, and then a little bit in Germany. So, and my first 20 years in Italy. And eventually that was kind of probably helping me in order to broaden up a bit, let's say, my actual mindset, although, I'm still coping and finding out, and trying, kind of to develop any limitations that I can still find here and there. So I basically initiated a group of self-determination in France, let's say, within the scope of a PPT, and that started in end of January this year, so it's pretty recent. And the discovery itself of a PPT was in November last year for my 40 years. So it was basically a present of the universe. And it was pretty awesome because although I was just watching a video, I thought this was so logic and was something, I was really looking forward for probably the whole life until then. So it was basically so much close to my soul that I really went deeply into the study of self-determination and of course the OPPT and all the documents, and went a bit behind also to understand, okay, the basis of jurisdictions and law, and my Black's Law Dictionary is basically my best companion. So and trying to really figure out, because I've been also working for a very long time in commerce. So I am still a key account manager for a corporation. So kind of really was a bit familiar to me, the fact that the whole world, including our governments, whatever, were under the ruling of commerce, because I was actually working in it. So I recognized basically the pattern. And therefore, from last November to today, little by little, my life is changing, and I'm taking decisions in different directions or whatever. So obviously, I'm still working there, but that's the next step, and I'm building up in order to really even get autonomy from this kind of job. So yeah, the fact that I was probably in commerce really helped me out to understand also the logic behind OCC and some codes that are used, and why is it so important actually when we talk about rights reserved, or where we talk about without prejudice and whatever, what it really means. And actually, I started to look at my own job in a very different way, and I started to look at life in a very different way. So and basically, I think that was the most enlightening moment of my life. Although I had several others, that I could name, but probably the most enlightening, because it's basically completely subversing everything that you have ever imagined in your life. So that's really a short description of myself. And I also have two kids. I have two cats and a dog. So which I all rescued basically, and well, or basically they rescued me. I don't know. I mean, somehow we found each other, and I'm living in France indeed since 10 years now, and planning probably also to move a bit ahead. I mean, somewhere else, but it's in the process.
You're a globetrotter like the rest of us here.
Yeah, it's more like chocolat. You go where the wind, blows. So you feel at a certain moment in time, that your soul is calling you somewhere else. And obviously, with the kids, you basically got to plan a little bit deeper, or better. Even you kind of a little bit restricted in terms of improvisation, because we are very much used to improvise with my husband. In these circumstances with kids, it's a little bit different, but yeah, you can do it. You can still do it with different conditions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lucia. I was just thinking, you mentioned many important keywords like OPPT and the UCC, the Stroman PDF, the legal fiction, these kind of things. For us, it's quite normal. We've been talking about this and studying this now for a long time. Well, a year at least or more for some. Mm-hmm. Maybe Nicole, would you like to explain just a little bit what it is? Nicole, would you like to?
Mm-hmm. I heard. I was just wondering where to start.
If you start with the OPPT, maybe, and even though this talk is not really about OPPT, but just it's an interesting insight that not many people know of.
I'll start with the layers. Okay. We think we live, I guess most of us believe we live in a world which has a government, which has states, which has rules and laws and regulations. And when you dive into these topics, you find out that there's a lot of hidden layers which actually rule us, our lives, and it is related to our topic, freedom. Once you know about this and how deeply it keeps us in a state of, well, in the outside, I'm always talking now of the outside, not the inner path, but it is layers that, in my opinion, try to keep us, I'll say, slavery in earning money for a system which does not use it in a way that we think it does. And for me, it is an abusive thing that's going on. And there's different levels of knowledge. Most important is to understand that it is commerce that rules this world. And I guess there's different approaches of how to deal with it. And one of them is OPPT, where, for example, I declare myself a free. I can send out these documents, but they were created for us. But actually, it is just the process that is called OPPT. This was a process in 2012, but we can relate to it and use these documents to send out, to inform relevant people which work for this commerce system, that we know about it and that we are free living men and women. And in the end, also create my own documents. Mm-hmm. there's many different ways to approach all of this, but this is a very spiritual one, because mainly all of them are about the inner path, about understanding where do I still have fears which attach me to a system that offers me officially safety and protection for my fears.
Yes.
I'm trying to build a bridge to our topic somehow.
Sure. Actually, if I may add something on the OPPT, it is not just a process. So if you read through the documents and you basically try to decrypt basically also what's in there in terms of how they are defined, also the same documents, which are, well, technically speaking, they are records, they are not even documents. So they are documents which have been registered, that they are kind of law. They are, technically speaking, they are international law ordinances for, well, international commerce law. So, and everything is ruled by UCC, this international commercial law or regulation, and all corporations basically are under UCC. So the fact that these records are basically contained in the UCC as international law ordinance makes it so that all the corporations of this world, including our governments, because they are corporations registered at the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission of the Washington, D.C., then obviously they have to abide to this law, to this international ordinance. So it's not just the process. I mean, whenever you are kind of using this document, you are using an international law ordinance. And that's the key word, because if you don't understand that and you are not presenting it as an international law ordinance, eventually when you're going to introduce your universal pass or whatever other document, obviously the other people don't know it, because that's already, you know, they have to do so many steps mentally in order to understand what you're talking about. But if you immediately say, like, it's an international ordinance, at least they give it the seriousness, you know, that it deserves, you know. And
Yes.
so that's very important. And second of it, it's indeed one of the ways eventually to do it, but probably the most solid way in terms, from a judicial point of view, to actually go for his own self-determination. And why? Because OPPT is a bridge. OPPT is a bridge between the positive law and common law and natural rights. So normally the natural law was, last times we saw it, and actually they tried to put it in writing, was the American Independent Declaration of Independence, you know, from 1776. So that was basically the first attempt to put the natural law into kind of sort of constitution, you know, for a government, you know. And before that, actually, that Declaration of Independence was included in common law, but in the original common law, I mean, not just the common law as we think it is a common law, I mean, which is basically law made by the sentences of judges, you know. So, so if you start to actually reason of all the backgrounds in terms of judicial aspects, the fact that you use this bridge, so OPPT, which is an international law ordinance, even within their jurisdiction, makes it possible for you who are under natural law to basically make them abide to natural law and to their own jurisdictions. Because somehow they have to abide to their own jurisdiction, which is the international regulation of commerce. So that's the thing, you know, that we really need to be clear with ourselves in order to be able to explain to others, you know. And the third thing is that it's a trust. And if you take the International Covenant for Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights from 1966, you would realize that at the Article 3, there's written that all the states of this world who have ratified these international covenants. And eventually Italy, I mean, made it in 1977, France in 1980, but I guess that also, I mean, your countries would have done the same. All of them, they need to recognize eventually the self-governing and the trust territories. What does it mean? That the trust itself has its own jurisdiction. So the moment that you kind of use yourself, recognize yourself into OPPT, and again, you recognize yourself, it doesn't mean that you adhere to anything. It doesn't mean that you are registered in anything because there's no register. It doesn't mean that you are abiding to anything. But the moment that you recognize yourself, eternal essence, so a beneficiary of this one people public trust, you become basically your own territory with your own jurisdiction, autonomous jurisdiction. And not only yourself, but also the people that you are part of. So this is also a way, I mean, why OPPT is so legitimate in this sense, because it's a trust, so it's a self-governing territory, because it recalls also Article 1 of this international covenant, which recognizes the self-determination of individuals and the self-determination of people. So it has it all. It has it all. Mm-hmm. And that's why, compared to other movements, because we have so many, and I say to people, until you do something, do it. It doesn't matter which movement you follow, whatever, just do it, you know, because everything helps, and all experiences also help yourself to find yourself in this. But why did I choose OPPT? For instance, the common law for me, the common law court, for me as an hierarchy, although they say no, for me it has a hierarchy, because the moment that somebody gives you a document, it's because somehow they create a hierarchy over you. They create an authority. Otherwise, a court wouldn't exist until, I mean, if it wouldn't have any authority, the court wouldn't exist. So you are kind of giving up part of your sovereignty again to maybe, you know, like a more correct entity, whatever, because it's an entity of people who share the same values. But again, you give up, you know, that kind of sovereignty. So the moment, you know, that they want, the moment somebody who is part of this common law court would claim something against you, they would have the authority, because you are one of the members, to come to you and say, hey, somebody has claimed something, you know, against you. And maybe, you know, everything is in good faith from both sides, and you find an arrangement, and you don't need even the court to rule it. But, you know, there's a double-edged sword somehow. And so we have to think it also in this kind of way. Then I saw the passport, because I also have it, the common law court passport, because I say to myself, okay, if for some reason Universal Pass wouldn't make it, you know, somehow, I mean, they wouldn't accept it or whatever, but until now I never needed it. But at least I would have another passport than the national passport. So fair enough, I have it in my drawer, and that's my last resource. Right, but you have to be aware, of what it means. And that's why that's my last resort. So again, if you ask me, I mean, why wouldn't I go blindly, you know, for CLC? For me, this is the reason. But again, I prefer a passport which says on it that you are the owner of the document and that you are a free man or a living woman, whatever it is, than a passport that is the property basically of the government, and it makes you also the property of the government. So fair enough, that's kind of a middle way, but it's still a compromise. It's still a compromise.
Yes.
Yes.
And also there are other movements, for instance, like the legal fraud, the legal name fraud, or for instance, what was it, Russell J. Gold, all of these, you know.
There are many, yes.
There are many, but there's one interesting thing in all of these. They all recycle the system or use the same methods or the same laws and jurisdiction of the system in order to make them work. So if you take, for instance, the legal name fraud, they often use basically the articles of constitution or articles of legalese, and might be a civil or common law, I mean, articles, but they actually use it. And this is very risky, because legalese itself, like, is also described basically, you know, in the law 1, which is also one of the documents of OPPT. In this law 1, it clearly says that legalese is basically kind of a system which is defined and has been designed over the years in order to trick you. So whatever article it has also its opposite. So whatever you want to, for whatever reason you want to use it, then for their own purposes, they might have another article that makes invalid what they just said before, or what you try to use. So the moment you get in, you know that you won't get out, because they play this game for hundreds of years. And the OPPT, for me, it's something completely new. And it's something, you know, that resonates in every word of the documents that you do. And it's true that it's spiritual, but again, I mean, it's very, very, very much, how would you say, it has a very strong judicial base.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
So I don't know, for me it's a miracle that it's really a bridge between the matter and the and basically whatever it might be, spiritual or whatever, the universal laws or whatever. So for me, this is kind of a marriage that I would have never imagined it could have existed.
That's a good one, a marriage, but but also it doesn't really matter. I mean, documents or no documents, as long as you embody this also as a free living woman. Of course, it's very good to inform yourself, to get the knowledge of the system and know what it's all about and all the tricks and the language and contracts and whatever they try to trick you into signing. But basically, you are the highest. We are the highest jurisdiction in the end. We are the divine beings that we came here to earth prepaid, pre-authorized, and you know, so as long as we just remember that, and it is in every aspect of our lives that we have little contracts, it's just to remember this. I have the right to be anywhere on this earth if I want to. That is my divine right. So nobody can you know, decide that for me. So, but it is a process also. Like you said, might be a compromise in between, and somebody would use the common law court or whatever, common law passports or whatever, in order to move yourself away from the system, and then finally just take the step. You know, so it's really interesting. But
what you are saying, it's really interesting, because eventually, I would say that these two things, I mean, cannot be really separated, you know. So if you do a kind of self-determination experience or a path, how you want to call it, I mean, somehow, you have to remember who you are. And I use on purpose, remember, you know, because somehow, I mean, we are lost on the way, you know, and we are taken elsewhere with a lot of other stuff, and we are they make us believe that we are something else, that we are the roles that we play in society. And until you step back and you really are listening to yourself again, then obviously self-determination can be only half self-determination. So that's why these documents, I mean, of OPPT, I'm not a fundamentalist, because I have a common law passport, and And you know, in our, let's say, group or in France, we have people coming from any type of, you know, let's say, self-determination path, whatever. So, and it's very interesting to listen to them. But these documents, actually, they really start by making you remember who you are.
Exactly.
Eternal essence, you know, really beyond everything. It's not just because you are embodied, you know, and living this experience that you have the right and you are under the natural law and blah blah blah. No, it's even beyond the natural law. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, it's coming from universal law. It's coming from the one. It's yes. It's really. I mean, this is amazing, because when you read it, you are kind of reading a prayer, but which makes you really understand where your rights are coming from. Mm-hmm. And either it speaks to you because you are kind of receptive and your mind is still not that much, let's say, filtered and, you know, conditioned by the outside world, or you would hate it, or you would think, oh, it's bullshit, you know. And because it's so complicated, because it's written also in UCC code, which is not really 100% accessible to everybody, then you might hate it. But if you really take the time and we have the chance to understand English, because I really understand it in this case, it's a chance to understand English, because any translation you would make would just corrupt a bit, you know, the meaning of what is written in there, you know. But if you have the chance and, you know, you take the time to really little by little sip it and taste it and, you know, understand it deeply. And, mm-hmm. and again, I was using him in my Black Slow dictionary close to me, you know, while reading it sometimes, you know. If you take the time, everything is in there. Everything from A to Z, but even the alchemy, even the laws of alchemy are in there, you know. Mm-hmm. All the universal laws are in there, and everything is in there. So mm-hmm. It's yeah, for me it was an epiphany.
Yes, that's great. Okay, now we've touched really an important subject, is to free ourselves from the system and be free. So this was the theme of our chat today. I would like to ask Una. Una, you've been listening. What does it mean for you to be free? How would you describe the most important thing for you?
I find it super interesting to hear what you're saying about this, because to me this concept, which I heard from you for the first time, was the kind of missing link, because you do all this inner work to be free in your mind and in your heart, and to me that's all I've been able to concentrate on, because I felt really kind of clawed down, you know, like just boxed in by all kinds of ideas. And it's like, this is the missing link to really kind of like bring it home, you know, to go all the way. I think it's best to start inside, you know, to look at your own limitations. To me, my limitations, my search for freedom, and like where I really looked into, like, let's say, conspiracy theories, was when I was pregnant and I started reading Ina May Gatskin, who is a midwife in America, who created a village for women to give birth in naturally, and was like a big inspiration to me. And I also had a midwife, which she brought water births to Iceland. That was her main thing. She did home births, and she asked me if I wanted to do something that's called hypnobirthing, which is self-hypnosis in order to do it naturally, because my aim was to give birth at home without any sedatives, any painkillers. And so she asked me, would you like to try this out? And it completely changed my experience of underwater it's all in the mind, basically. Pain and the fear about giving birth, and this kind of like fake security you get from going to hospital, this sense of everything is under control there. Because I've got 2 kids, and one, I was gonna give birth to the first kid at home, but then the water was colored when my water broke. It was like a deep brown, like a green, and I think it's because of spirulina that I was taking, because it smelled exactly like spirulina. And I tried to say this to the midwife, like I really don't think it's anything, so the baby has like pooed into the water, and therefore that's why we couldn't do it at home, And so I went to the hospital. It's the 23rd of December at night, and I have the hospital to myself, and like the best thinkable hospital birth, but still there were some things where I felt like my freedom to do this as I wanted to weren't being respected. And one of the biggest things there was that I said I had a bad taste in my mouth, and the nurse on call, she said, "Shall I bring you a lozenge, like some sweet to take away the bad taste?" And I say, "Yes, please." And then she brings it to me. I take it, and I immediately spit it out, because somehow there's something weird about it. It's like it's making me feel bad. And Annik starts looking at the packaging and notices it's like a little with the aluminium backing, And so what she was giving me was a painkiller. And she lied to me, She said, "Would you like something nice to eat?" And not like, because I had made it clear to them that I didn't want any medicine. So, like this tiny little thing was already like enough for me to just like, this experience was so bizarre, because I didn't realize it until later when I gave birth to my daughter, which happened at home with the same midwife, in a pool in the living room, and it was exactly how I had imagined it. It was like there were flowers on the table, and the sun was shining in, and everything was so incredibly good and nice, and I was so happy for her to be born this way, to be born, into this. Your mother holds you, and you go lay in your own bed, and there's nobody trying to mess with you, and like take away your freedom of doing this thing that we have been doing in caves, up in mountains, on the sea, on the road, without electricity, without, this really, like, to me, kind of like started my journey of looking at like, okay, wow, this is like, the way that our life is sculpted is always with the tops in mind, never with the people who are actually, like, if you get booked into a cesarean, it's because the doctor is having a holiday on the day that you're due. So you get booked earlier, and told to come 2 weeks early, and all of these things, this kind of like comes to light. So yeah, there were a couple of other things, like my baby smelling of somebody else's perfume, because she took him and cuddled him. She stole the first hug from my baby, she kind of like, and then passed to me smelling of her perfume. And it really, like, I got so angry. I was so unhappy with that experience. But I mean, I still did it without any sedatives, and I think, yeah, I think this is like my biggest kind of like, I was so afraid of giving birth, and I think a lot of women are grown up in this fear, and that you're kind of like dependent on doctors and drugs and nurses and tests and monitors and all these things, and it actually goes much better without, you know, for most people. Of course, I'm really happy that, you know, hospitals exist and that you can go there. But if we would all just be allowed to home birth, I mean, we would save the hospitals so much money. We would save so much trouble, so much eczema and warts and all kinds of stuff that kids get from, you know, like this environment that is just, I don't know. This little pill could have really cascaded me into having to have like an epidural or something really big. So that's where my search for freedom began, when I was giving birth.
It's also so, it's a very crucial experience. It's a very intimate experience, of course, but it's robbing the women of such an instinctive, natural feeling, robbing us of not trusting ourselves. We need other people to tell us and buzz us around instead of just going back home and into ourselves and listen. I heard of somebody who is close in my family who had her third child and did it on her own. It's in Iceland, in her home, without a midwife, just with her husband, and everything went really well. And she just
Was it the one that was told to call the? There was somebody who told a girl who was giving birth in her bathtub to call the fire brigade. Was it her?
I don't
See,
know.
this is small Iceland. Like,
I haven't heard that part of the story, but I will ask again. But it all went well. I know that my granddaughter told me. So, but she insisted on doing it and listening to herself and really without any help. She had her husband present, of course, which is wonderful. But
unassisted.
yeah, but it starts there to go back to exactly to the roots, to our natural way of being, because we are so indoctrinated, conditioned and brainwashed into living a certain way. We just completely forget what we are all about. We need to remember more, right?
I have a friend.
And these births are made to traumatize the babies, so they start into a life of fear right away, and of loneliness, and of not being able to bond.
Yeah, the drug. That's what the epidural. If you are in any way drugged, the connection that happens in those first couple of minutes just after birth and gets the milk flowing, that is interrupted. That is broken down, and it can mean like that you can't really breastfeed because you had an epidural. And I have a friend, she was just like, she had decided before she went into labor, long before, like, I will have an epidural. And because we have been sold this idea that this is what we need, that the body is incapable of dealing with this. And I'm so grateful that I had this midwife who introduced hypnobirthing, you know, like nobody's heard of it, and it was amazing. It, you know, it's used for people who are allergic to anesthetics, so they're going into surgery, or they're going into having a root canal filling or something like that, and they can use this method to absolutely control their own experience of pain. And I mean, what is more powerful than pain to control us? Exactly.
When you say root canal, I had my root canal once without painkillers.
Wow.
Because I said to the dentist, the painkillers and all these drugs are so bad for me and bad for my voice. Voice is always in the first place. I don't want it. Yeah, I don't want anything. So I also went into a certain kind of a breathing and hypnosis, and my daughter was sitting there just watching me, and the dentist was just like looking between us sometimes and saying, "What is your mother doing?" But it went really well, and I'm confident. I'm also doing experiments now with breathing and sounding and sounding into certain parts and healing myself of backache, of nausea, of headaches, just by using the breath and the sound. So we can do so much. We are
I
so
stepped
powerful.
out of painkillers 35 years ago, out of anything I've had anything done without. So
yeah.
I sang throughout.
You have to be to be honest. Okay, I'm healing myself since 20 years with plants, and you know, I've been also the plant academy here in France. So I did these studies just, you know, because I wanted to be sure that somehow, I mean, I could defend myself, you know, with doctors or whoever, in case, you know, I was raising my kids without medicines or whatever. You know, so I really did them for that purpose, because anyway, I mean, most of it I knew already, you know, even before starting, you know, the course. But I was really happy because I really met great people over there, and indeed nature offers you everything, and offers you also a chance to get to know yourself much better, you know. I mean, and how you work, whatever. I mean, if you observe nature and the plants that heal you for certain things, you would immediately have a map of your body, you know, and how it works, you know. It's just amazing. But I have to be honest, you know, even in that sense, I don't criticize, you know, in some cases, you know, even allopathic medicine, you know, can be helpful. You know, if you take, for instance, like pregnancies, you know, and deliveries that last, I mean, for 1 day or 2 days, which was my case on my first delivery. At a certain point, I really wanted to do it natural, but after one day, I gave up. I was only, you know, dilated 2 centimeters, and I had contractions for 1 day. And at a certain point, I said to myself, because I was completely exhausted, and I was very lucky that I was in the Netherlands, and they kind of made the epidural, not the epidural, the peridurale. I don't know how to translate that, you know, but kind of the anesthetic, but just the needle. And then they said to myself, dose yourself, but don't go up this level. And I did the minimum. I did really the minimum possible. And this was really easing me up. And I arrived at the end of the delivery also in a kind of decent way. And when it was time to push, I could feel that I was pushing. I could feel the baby going out. I could still feel it. I was immediately, they were so kind and so natural. That's why the environment also, you know, it's very much making difference, because they were really respectful. And when I chose where I wanted to deliver, I was going there and I was asking them, I want to have the baby immediately. As soon as he gets out, immediately, I want to breastfeed, you know, and nobody will remove my baby from me. So I was writing a declaration. I mean, well, you promised me that this is gonna happen, you know. And they did that, and they gave to me the baby. The baby was immediately enlacing. It was immediately breastfeeding, and I was never separated from my baby. So in some particular cases, and I didn't try hypnosis. If I would know, I mean, now I would try, because I didn't know before, actually. Yeah. And even plants with this level, unless you go to some very powerful plants, I mean, like opium or whatever, they wouldn't remove, I mean, the pain of the, let's say, of the delivery. But in some cases, I don't judge, I mean, the use of this. I don't judge it. What I judge is really the misuse of it. Because most of the times we abuse of it. And we are not able indeed to suffer any pain. We really want to have a completely painless life. We just fragilize our body, you know, by not accepting pain at all. And physical pain is just one thing, but we normally also reject from our lives any pain, emotional pain or psychological pain or moral pain. We are really reluctant to any type of pain, you know. Sure. And So the point is, it's the abuse and the misuse, and the fact indeed they can manipulate us with that. But in a different scenario, with my second delivery, for instance, I completely experienced the corporation method, like you, a bit like you said, Una, you know, that, okay, first of all, I knew what it was a delivery because I had already my first one. So I knew what it was. So when I arrived, because I had my baby in 30 minutes, completely the opposite of the first delivery, 30 minutes delivery. So I was arriving and I said, I'm gonna have my baby, you know, I'm there, I'm ready. And they didn't believe me. So I was fainting and they were looking at me like, oh, what's that? You know, oh, it's, I mean, it's in Italian, I mean, a bit dramatic, you know. So they would have left me on the floor even if my husband wouldn't have been there. And when the baby was born, they took her from me, and I said, no, I told you that I want to have my baby. You have to give it to me immediately. Oh no, we have to take the blood, the glucids, and we have to see if she's all right, and we have to take the temperature, etc. So after 15 minutes, they were back. You know, we cannot give her to you because the glucids are down. So they gave like a sugar like bottle to her in order to make the glucids out. I said, of course, I mean, the glucids are down because she's not breastfeeding. Give her to me. No, man, you cannot have it. You cannot have her. I mean, she has to take the bottle. Then basically they moved us after 15 minutes, whatever, I mean, into the room where we would have been. And they said, you shouldn't take her from the bed. You shouldn't take, because, you know, it was the closed one, the warming one. You shouldn't take her from the bed. I said, yeah, sure, I wouldn't. The moment they got out, I picked the baby, I put her on me with a lot of covers on it and breastfeeding her, and the baby was perfectly fine. She didn't have any glucose problem anymore whatsoever. But then they invented the bilirubin, which is a natural antioxidant. Since my baby was born 1 month earlier, it's normal that bilirubin was a bit on the edge. And they didn't tell me that it was on the edge. They told me it was over the limit. And so they had to do phototherapy. So in the middle of the night, they were like, they were threatening me that my baby would have died because I didn't want to do phototherapy. And if I eventually didn't want to do it, I had to sign a declaration where I would have taken all responsibility. And this is my first act of self-determined, because I was really, and I didn't know, I mean, I wasn't even self-determined at the time. And I said, you know what? I don't care who tells me. I don't care if it's the Pope. I don't care if it's the prime minister, whatever. You wouldn't touch my baby. So I don't care. Okay, give me a paper. And in that paper, I said, you know, I want to see other doctors and other specialists before doing this phototherapy. And I don't want my kid to have this thing. So I want to get out of this. I will get out of this. And eventually, you know, after I did that, I was claiming immediately, you know, the results of the analysis. Like, I want to see the results of the analysis of my kid. Where's the bilirubin? I want to see the levels of bilirubin. If you tell me that it's above. And after 2 days, the moment that I was going out, they brought me the analysis, and she wasn't even over the limit. So I was really looking at them, and I was like, let me go out, because otherwise here I will bring you to court immediately. So that's where I really experienced the corporation in the public system.
Yeah.
They don't do it for the health of people, they do it for money. And the real problem, it's not the system itself. It's the people who are completely unaware that they are perpetrating this kind of mechanism over and over just by following procedures. Yes. They even don't follow the law, they follow procedures. Even policemen, they don't know law. When I've been to UK and I stayed with the policeman, I mean, 2 hours and a half, talking about my universal pass and who I was or whatever, it was a very, very pleasant conversation in the end, honestly, you know, and I could pass and I could go, I mean, to UK and nothing happened. But when I was over there, you know, and I was talking law, and at a certain moment, I even mentioned the French Constitution, they even didn't know what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. They are really following procedures only, completely unaware. This is not even law what they are following.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the problem. And so, if I may answer to your question, what it is to be free.
Absolutely.
My personal experience is, because since I was a kid, I was feeling like I wasn't reasoning like the rest of my family, and not even the rest of the people I used to meet. And that's why I also came into some diseases, etc. Until at 20, I said to myself, I need to go out of here. And, you know, I found myself a job, I found myself, I'm in a study, and I went over and I built up my life in a very different and much more resourceful way. But it's something that you are born with, you know, but you forget that you are. And that's the thing, it's remembering who you are, because you are born, you're born without borders, you're born without papers, you are born without clothes, you are born without medicines, you're born without work, you're born without everything. You're just born with what? 2 parents, or maybe 1, depending, so the mother, at least, that brings you, you know, which is the bridge with nature, and the rest, I mean, it's yourself. And this is the thing, if you manage to understand that you are nature, and that everything else is pure invention, it's pure convention, because it's something, an invention which has been generally accepted. Mm-hmm. So it makes it a convention. Mm-hmm. Then you're free. Then you're completely free. And it's so easy, because I guess that all of you here, because, you know, if we make this sort of conversation, it's probably because we all felt it since we were kids. That it was something wrong, you know, that was going around, and then this world was weird, you know, and it was too complex to be accepted as it was, because complexity is not part of nature. So anything which is true cannot be complex. It has to be simple. It has to be obvious. It has to be self-evident. I don't need to explain it, you know. It's there. You know it's true, because it's indeed being, the fact that it is, and it's enough. So, and freedom is a bit that. Freedom is just being, and being and acting in according to what you are. That's also natural. That's also one of the universal laws, you know, the law of action. So everything cannot just stay in your thoughts, I mean, or in your purposes, or in your motivation or willingness to do something. It has to materialize. So the moment that you make your being in action, and that the 2 things are in coherence, then, you know, you're free. So freedom is being in action.
Mm-hmm. I would like to take it down a different path too, because most people would now say, well, in order to live well together, we need rules and laws and whatever, because otherwise it will not work. And we need a system and whatever. And I mean, from their perspective, they probably are right. So I think it's also very important to stress out that if I am really in search for freedom, then comes along a lot of responsibility. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I just go around breaking laws. I'm free and I can do whatever I want to. I can behave how I want to, break anything, take other people's things. No. What we, I guess, and I can say we, are looking for is not this kind of freedom, which some people might also call freedom. It's very specific about self-responsibility, self-determination, and taking my life into my hands and not being told by other people what is better for me, going into deep knowing. And it is a long quest, a long search, to really know, to know my own truth. And for example, truth, to also to learn to speak my truth. We are so often told we have to be, we're not allowed to say something because we might hurt someone else.
Mhm.
That we often do not know anymore how to speak our truth, which is part of being completely responsible for my being and doing.
I think this is part of remembering. Because again, and that's one thing, you know, I'm not sure why universal laws are not taught out in schools, because that's the basic. These are the basic. Because if you really remember, and then responsibility comes along, but not because, you know, you feel the burden of it, or because you feel that you have to do it for the others, or because you feel that you are expected to do it, or whatever reason. You know that it has to be that way, and that's it. You know, and you know that, for instance, when you said the example, you know, you shouldn't speak your own tone because you are blessing somebody else, you know, maybe it's true in some cases. Maybe in some cases you would think it's not worth, for many reasons. Maybe simply because the other person is not ready to hear, or whatever reason. What's your motivation behind speaking the truth? Sometimes silence speaks more than your own truth, you know. So I mean, it all depends. It all depends. But if we really understand the meaning of free will, and in this case we really act upon it, what does free will means? My free will can be, let's say, practiced, you know, I'm free until I don't damage you, you know, until I don't damage others, which could be like physically, psychologically, morally, whatever, you know. This is the natural law. This is so simple, even a kid would understand it, you know. Again,
Mhm.
it's remember who we are. As kids, we know it is. Remember it. And then responsibility comes so natural, because you know that you would hurt yourself even by damaging somebody else. You will know that everything comes back at a certain point, even in another life. I mean, in some cases, but whatever, you would have to experience that to understand that this was wrong and that you have to take another way. So again, it's remembering. And also why I really focus very much on remembering and memory, because it's the presence. It's presence in the moment. So you are self-aware of what you do the moment you do it. And the fact that you do it this way and you consider what you do it in the moment you do it, it makes it so much engraved in your soul and in your experience that somehow, you know, you will never pass through it again, because it's part of you. It's something that you ingrained. You will not forget, you know. So that's why also being present is the responsibility is the consequence of being present. It's a natural consequence. When you are present in the moment, you are self-aware, you remember what you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
I mean, your life and what you came here for. Everything else is a consequence. And when you say self-determination, when you say I'm here to do, I mean, what I want to do, partly it's true, you know, because yeah, self-determination cannot be there without sovereignty. So sovereignty is the power that you have to make decisions on your life without an external authority. Just to make an example, your parents, when you are a kid, are your sovereign, but you look at them as your sovereign somehow, you know, because they are telling you what is true, what is wrong, what is not, what is correct somehow. In most cases, now there are natural parenting skills and all these things that makes us aware that this is also another, you know, it's a very old-fashioned way of looking at it. But somehow, you know, when you get to be an adult, and most people don't manage to get to be an adult, you become your sovereign, meaning that you become able to take decisions and to distinguish and to decide for yourself what's good and what's wrong, or what's a middle way between the two. But you still decide for yourself. You decide for making errors or for not making errors, or for just without any judgment, making that experience and see how it goes, you know? So self-determination, again, is a consequence of sovereignty. You cannot have self-determination and decide to determine yourself without having the authority to do it for you. So that's why when you said, Sorun, you said, it starts from us, you know, the documents, you know, are just as a formality, whatever. Partly is true and partly not. Because I really believe that when you use this document, when you autograph them, you know, I wouldn't use signs, so you autograph them, you make a pact with yourself to remember. And it's a pact that gives you even more strength in your motivation on what you want to do. And whenever you are like unsure, you know, or you know, you have those moments where you think, okay, why did I do that? You know, I mean, my life could have been maybe much easier if I paid this, you know, this fine, and it would be over, you know. And you go back and you remember again what the pact that you made with yourself. What do you make it? It's a sort of pact for freedom.
Yes.
You know? But for you, with yourself, with your own self. For instance, I don't know. I mean, I always used to write the objectives of my year. No, the first of the year, like for law of attraction, but I didn't know it was law of attraction at the time. I always did that. I try, you know, I love to write down what I wanted to get. I mean, what I wanted to achieve and create and put in place for my year. You know, from the most fun thing or to the silliest one, or you know, to the serious ones, whatever. And in 90% of the cases, I managed to get there. Because it's a kind of attraction, you know, it's a kind of seal. In the law of attraction, you have it as well. I'm writing something, makes it happen.
Yes.
It's part of the materialization of reality based on what you are envisaging.
To the action. Yeah, I get what you're saying. For me, I feel you can also go beyond it. I mean, if you are beyond the fear and if you are embodying what you are, you don't need any documents. You don't need any signatures. If you reach that state, you don't have to be reminded of it because you embody it already. So that's my point.
Okay.
But yeah, but I'm not saying you cannot use the documents, and I think you can use them, especially at the beginning, while you're taking the first steps towards the system and all of that. And it's also for many to make a declaration. It makes a difference for many people to do that, and then yet other people who read the documents, they don't feel the need because they feel the documents, they're already there. So I think it's a different stage, different process for each one. basically it is, yes.
Yes.
Una, you go ahead.
I've been wanting to talk about this with you guys and ask you how you experience this, but because I've been thinking about freedom, and I was thinking about like, kind of like, when did I feel the freest, you know? And it's really weird, but it's when my mother died. That's when, you know, and then this is like, this kind of like, this rang true like further back, like in times when I was utterly shattered. All of a sudden, like the worse my life was, the more freedom I could experience. Do you relate to this in any sense? Do you, like, you were talking earlier about like, you get born free, and in my case, I didn't get born free. I got born into a slavery of my mother's authority over my being, and I was there to assist her life, do things for her, and I was just a thing, you know, that she gave me love, and I don't complain. But the day that I got I got a phone call from my grandfather, and he told me this, I could feel, literally physically, a cloud lift off my being, a black cloud that lifted, and my husband, he said to me, I saw a cloud lift from you. And I said, and I could feel it. So we both, you know, like independently in the same moment, he saw me on the phone. He didn't know what was going on, because it was just like, hello, oh, okay, whoa, you know, like it wasn't like surprise. It was something that had been like happening for a while, you know, and like I was kind of anticipating it. But in that moment, I felt so free. I went swimming, I laid in the pool, I looked at the sky. The sky was open, the water was hugging me, you know, and there was no danger of bumping into her or having any communications with her. And, you know, like this, I don't know, this is like, and then something like in my relationship with my husband also. So this really dangerous situation where somebody comes into our relationship and is like about to just trying to break us apart, you know, and we took that into the freedom of like, how do we want to define our relationship? Like, would we maybe like to have an open relationship, or, you know, and that's also like one of those moments where it was so like, so trodden down, and then, you know, or like one of the most unhappy moments of our relationship that then blossomed into this crazy freedom. And have you guys experienced something like this as well?
Yes.
Well, I would. I just wanted to mention, it is also a moment, you mentioned that there's something horrible happening or difficult happening, but it's also when you're stripped of everything. You're stripped of your titles, you're stripped of completely, you have nothing. And you stay in this moment and and you think, I'm nothing. Okay, but I'm everything also. It has a moment, I don't have to please anyone. I don't have to be anything for anyone. I just am me in all its essence. And then you start creating from this place. And for other people, that may look like, oh my God, this is horrible. You don't have you don't have a job, you don't have money, you don't have this, and you don't have that, and you're completely alone or whatever. But
since I was 17, I was trying to understand this freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. And it has all in it.
Yes.
And actually, this is probably the only way you wouldn't lose, unless you really decide to lose. But it's interesting what Una said, because I said that I was born free, but why? Because I don't know if you had the same as well, because I had a very similar one with my mother. Actually, the cloud was lifting for me when I left home, not when my mother died. Because when my mother died, she died quite young. And I had very, very mystical experiences. You know, once she died, she really communicated to me, and she really wanted to pass away. She really wanted to change life. So that was clear. But I said that I'm born free because you notice the cloud the whole time. The whole time since you're a kid, you feel that you have the cloud on you. You feel the burden that you have, or they try to put on you, and the sense of guilty if you don't do like they want, or if you don't act like the proper child, or if you leave your mother alone, because in some cases you are the mother of your mother, or you know, a lot of situations, you know. But when I say, you know, you're born free, it's because even if you are a kid, you don't have much choice, because obviously they play authority on you. You're not sovereign again of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You see it. You still see it or feel it. You feel it. And that's why when your mother died, you realize the cloud, because you've always felt it. The point is that you didn't have the courage, maybe because you didn't want to bless or hurt her, or maybe because it was too painful for you, whatever the reason. You didn't have the courage to lift the cloud yourself before, without judgment, huh?
I think it was impossible. I actually think
maybe you thought at that time it was impossible, or whatever.
I thought that cloud was
but
me.
You realized,
you know, like it was part of who I was. It was like, I am the daughter, and I guess when I introduce myself next time, I will maybe say like, I am the child of a narcissist or something, you know, like it has colored life immensely. And I've learned so much thanks to it, you know.
Yes.
But yeah, I didn't know. I didn't realize how much this was weighing me down until it was gone. And then I realized, wow, you know, then I started digging. Then I started looking at her as an outside part of me, because up until that point, she had kind of hooked her energy into my energy,
Yes.
you know, and she would live through me, you know.
Yes, vampirizing it.
Yeah.
Well, at my 20s, I decided to leave house because of that, you know. And I remember that when I left, it was the most painful time of my life, because I didn't know how to do anything. You know, my mother wouldn't allow me to have anything, like even a social life or even to cook an egg, you know. So, but I was self-determined. I was really so sure that it would have been sick of me, because honestly, I had enough of being sick. I had enough of being sad, and I had enough of everything. I had enough even of feeling crazy, because I thought that, you know, I was surrounded by people who were acting and having a very routinary life without even realizing they were in a routine, and everything was so crazy. They were not enjoying life. And honestly, there was nothing enriching. There was this TV on from the morning till the evening, and I hated TV. And I was a very different kid, you know, from my broad family, as so not my direct family only. You know, when you were going to grandma, when you were going to auntie, when you were going, everybody was the same. And you were feeling like, come on, I mean, I'm crazy. I have enough of being crazy. I want to go out and see if I'm the only crazy one or not, or I just want to be free. So at 20, I left, and I think I cried for maybe 1 month every night in a row, because I didn't know where to start from. But I knew it was the way. But the thing is that you know what's the way. The problem is that it's what you say, that sometimes they make us identify, and when we are kids, we are very much you know, we are, they can manipulate us much better, you know, when we are kids.
But the weird thing, like I had already emancipated myself from this behavior, you know, like I shut her out of my life, and I realized like I am different. She doesn't have control over me. I don't want to be treated like this. And I could feel how good that was, but there was still this deeper layer of my being that was her daughter and her child and her eldest, and what does my family think about it, all of the the aspects I didn't unnecessarily want to admit to myself, because I had, on the physical level, I had closed the door, I had said enough of this bullshit, but then the cloud was like, that was, I feel like, on another layer, on another level that I just could not reach until it actually,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
happened as she dies. And when I'm cleaning out her flat, I have, like, all of a sudden I get this insight into who she really was, and at one point I get this sensation that I'm really happy, because she's putting the crown on my head. She's like, now you are the eldest woman of this family.
Yes, you were the mother of your mom.
Now you are the queen. It was like a really big, like, wow. And it changed me, how I acted towards my siblings. All of a sudden I started taking more responsibility for them and teaching them things, and taking full responsibility for her funeral and everything that she left behind, and so on, And I think if I would have still had that cloud on me, I couldn't have seen any of those things. I couldn't have, it was really properly like a physical thing that was just shrouding my vision,
Because I don't know, at least that's my personal analysis on myself. We basically, often in parents and kids, there's a very much meritocratic relationship that goes on. So in order to deserve their love, you have to act as they wish you act.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very natural, and it's kind of very primitive thing, but the most natural because of that, that you wish to have the love of your parents, and that love you wish to have for the whole life until they are there. Because it's basic. It's what gives you self-confidence when you're a kid. If your parents are telling you that you can do it, come on, yeah, you can do it, go, you can do it, then you grow up self-confident, because they know they trust you, that you would go for it. If they, on the contrary, they would put you down and they would criticize you and they will withdraw love from you, then it's like killing you, you live for their love. So that thing probably is just, and sometimes, as I said, they work a lot with a sense of guilt. So my mother used that mechanism a lot, but she wasn't aware, because my grandmother did exactly the same with her.
It's our forefathers.
Exactly.
It's a circle. Yeah.
It's a chain. It's a chain that goes on until somebody breaks it.
Yeah.
And after, for instance, in my case, after I went out, that helped my sister. My sister, had a lot of health issues, and she couldn't succeed what she wanted in life or whatever. And at least, by looking at me, then she made up, her own life, and she took the courage even to do things and she would have normally done. So once you break the chain, you don't do it only for you do it also with others. By being yourself, by lifting that cloud somehow, it's amazing, the interdependence in that sense, but you would do it even with others,
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I don't know.
I was just going to say, because time is really running, we've been talking for a long time. I wanted to actually address Nicole because you really didn't get to answer what it means to you to be free. So if you would like to, you started maybe a little bit of it. Would you like to say more?
I think in view of the time, I think we too have had those moments of being deep down, and it's where I started my quest for freedom. Actually, when at that point where there is nothing left to lose. And then not being a victim, but starting to discover yourself, working on all the issues and stepping out of them.
Yeah, it is a very important thing, exactly, not to be a victim when we take the self-responsibility for our actions, emotions, and everything, body. All right, anything at the end of our conversation you would like to add, if one at a time? Una, something you would like to say before we quit for tonight?
I just saw it now as a kind of like kingdom, and while you're inside of the walls of the kingdom where you've got a job and for your life, and you're not really free, you're just safe, and it's a really good thing to be thrown out of this kingdom of convenience and compliance, and all of a sudden the world is there and you're not just within those walls of the kingdom. You've got a whole globe, and the kingdom just becomes this tiny dot. And yeah, I think I would like to be there. I'd like to be outside of the walls. And you guys doing this OTTP stuff really is also breaking the chain, for everybody else who is listening to you, and will then be able to, like you did for your sister, follow along much more easier, and yeah, lead by example. That's something I like. And yeah, okay, that's me.
Thank you. What about you, Lucia?
Well, as a last remark, what Nicole mentioned, nothing else to lose. I personally, I would remove the else. Because if you say nothing else to lose, it's like, okay, this is your only possibility, you have to, necessarily go that way. But here is the opposite interpretation of it, is that since everything is in you, you cannot lose anything. So you realize that in reality, you're not losing absolutely anything, and you can only gain from it, because what's really important, nobody can take it from you. Nothing. And this is your freedom. But freedom, again, with the choice of practicing it, again, with the action. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I actually
conversation.
This is actually how I also understood what Nicole was saying, is when you have nothing to lose, meaning actually more materialistic way, then you have everything to gain, because like you said, Lucia, it's all inside. It's all there. The kingdom, the rich kingdom is within, and so we don't have anything to lose. What about you, Nicole? Anything you would like to say at the end?
The moment we have nothing left to lose, meaning also inside everything to gain, we cannot be compromised as easily.
Yes, exactly. Okay, with those words, we say goodbye for now. And thank you so much for being here and opening your hearts and telling your beautiful stories and everything, your well of wisdom. And see you another time, okay?
Thank you.
Ciao.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Wait a minute.
Oh, whoops. That was fun.
You have to stop the recording.